Hello, welcome to episode 243 of the Craft House Magic podcast. My name's Ellie and I'm coming to you from Norwich in Norfolk in the UK, and today is the 16th of March. So welcome everybody. I hope you all had a lovely crafty week since the last time I've spoken to you, and I'm here to share all the things that I've been making in the last 7 days. So today I have some knitting, some crochet, some sewing, something I'm making for Jensen, a gadget and confessions. Oh dear. I have some information about my shop and then a little appearance from Jensen at the end of the podcast wearing something that I've sewn that I show in the sewing section. So we've got some Makalongs going on in the Ravelry group and on Instagram. They are Craft 20 a day, which is running throughout the year, and it's working on 20 minutes a day on a project, those bigger projects to get them done. I've got the Retro Mal 2023, which is basically working on anything that can be linked to anything retro. Any of the colourways that I dye in my shop, they're all sort of retro song titles, so those can join in, or any tenuous link is also accepted. That's running March till May. And then I've decided to start the spring shawl along a little bit early because somebody asked me whether they could start it early. So I'm going to start the ball rolling for that. That'll go until the end of June. So that is working on any shawl, whether it's knitting or crochet or any other craft that you can make a shawl out of. I'm quite flexible with the sort of rules. So if you're making a cowl as well, or a wrap or anything that's similar to a shawl, those can join in as well. But as long as you haven't done more than 50% of a project, you can come and join in. I'm also drawing today the prize for the email subscriber giveaway, which I'll talk about in the shop update section of the podcast. But if you sign up to my newsletter by scrolling down to the bottom of my website, popping your email address in, that's subscribing you to my email list, and you'll get an email update every time I have a shop update. And every month I do a prize draw from that list of people, and you could be in with a chance of winning one of the prizes. And normally I give away a set of yarns that are that month's yarn clubs, so the sock set and the mini set as well. So let's get on with the knitting, shall we? I have a special guest today, so introducing my mother-in-law Liz. She's going to pop on the podcast and show something that she's made. So Liz is here to show what she's been knitting on. So you wanted to knit something for yourself this time, didn't you?
I certainly did.
So this is the jumper that Liz has been knitting. That's the right way, isn't it, Liz? You hold it up. This is the King Cowl 5829, and it is in a super chunky yarn, and it's a really cosy sweater. But the pattern itself actually comes in a sweater and a cardigan. I'll pop a picture up in front of my face so you can see what the actual pattern's supposed to look like. But it looks pretty much the same, to be honest. But you did add a little bit of length to the body on this, didn't you?
Because that was cropped, really.
Yeah, if you look carefully at the picture, it looks quite cropped, doesn't it? So how many, did you know how many rows you added extra?
Oh.
Did you just eyeball it?
I just added an extra 2 inches, I think.
Yeah, 2 inches.
Yeah.
I think that's about normal for a crop to make it a full length one, isn't it?
Good, yep.
So this hasn't got any cuffs or anything on it. The only thing that you added on after the panels was the neckline, wasn't it? Which I picked it up because you didn't like picking up the stitches, do you?
No. It's not my job.
But it was really easy to put together, actually. I did the sewing together. You've just got the front, the back, the arms. Sew those pieces together and add the neckline in, and it's done. Very quick, really. And it's super chunky.
It's very warm.
Yeah. How long do you reckon it took you to knit it?
Not long at all. That knits up so quickly. And I pulled it out twice, I think, because I thought I did something wrong. I can't remember. And I thought, well, I'll just do it again. And that's very good. Yeah. Simple. My sister knitted one. That's where I got the pattern idea from. So she had the jacket.
If we put the texture right up to the camera to see what it looks like, it's a really nice moss stitch texture all over. And I really like the neckline, actually. The neckline is garter stitch round and round in circles, which I think gives a nice sort of higher neckline there. It really sort of frames your face nicely.
Contrast.
Yeah.
Very good.
So the yarn that I picked for you, because the pattern actually said to use King Cowl, I had a look and they didn't have the colour that Liz wanted. She wanted sort of a pink colour. So I found some Stylecraft Life, super chunky in the blush colourway, and that's what we got left. from knitting it, about 90 grams in total. So the size that Liz knitted, sorry for telling them this size, was small, is a 36, which actually says to use 8 skeins, and we'd got 90 grams left in the end, so that's plenty of yarn with the extra knitting as well, so they obviously give you a little bit of extra leeway just to make sure that you don't run short. This is 75% premium acrylic and 25% wool. And I said to Liz about this because I said to you I could dye it up in my own hand-dyed yarn, but because it was super chunky and I don't have any super chunky yarns at the moment to dye anyway, I thought it might be a bit heavy on the body and you might end up with a massive heavy like jumper
hanging to your leg ankles.
So I thought having acrylic is actually good for something that's really thick and chunky.
It's really nice.
And it has got a bit of wool in as well. And I always think that Stylecraft is quite a good yarn to go for because it's a good quality acrylic yarn. And you can stick it in the washing machine.
Yes.
Stick it out on the line and it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Good.
So what did you think of the yarn when you were knitting it? Did it feel very nice?
Very strange, because I've been knitting, what is that called?
Oh, fingering weight.
Yes, and then I went to this, and I had to work out where to put the needles, because my fingers were aching a bit, and then after a while I got used to it. So, and now going back to fingering weight, that's so much easier. I just, I'm whizzing along.
It's quite heavy, isn't it, to hold up?
Yeah,
And you knitted it mostly on the circular needles rather than the long needles.
No,
right?
long
or did
needles.
you use the long needle?
Yeah,
because it was a 10
10
millimeter for the body.
Yeah.
And you had to borrow some, didn't
My
you?
neighbour had size 10. Yeah.
So I didn't have any 10 millimeter needles at all.
You had 9.
I had 9, and because the higher needles don't go up to anything past 9 millimeters. So I haven't got any from previous knitting either, so we had to go and borrow some.
But that was fine. I gave them back. I gave them back.
She'll be after you otherwise. But that was such a big thick needle, because I did the neck on it for you, but I found that seemed quite heavy with the circular needles, but you must have felt it even more heavy with the long straight needles.
Got muscles now.
Yeah.
No. Good.
So, shall we try it on, see what it looks like?
Alright then.
Okay. So there we go. Ta-da!
Ta-da!
So it's a lovely chunky jumper, really nice and cosy. And actually I think the 36 fits you perfectly. Yeah. So obviously the body measurements were bigger than the 36. So 36 is the measurement of sort of the bust size to fit, and the approximate measurements were 41 3/4, and you'd measured it against another jumper that you've got, which is a really good idea. I did. Just to make sure that it'll fit.
That's lovely and warm.
Yeah, it'll be too hot now. It'll be good for next winter though.
Always late.
But I really do like that neckline. I'm very tempted, because Adam tried it on because he's cheeky.
Yeah, he did.
He really liked how the texture fits, so we could do a darker one for him and do it so that it's a bit more...
I'll do it.
Like a man fit, if you know what I mean. But it's got dropped shoulders, and I don't know whether on him it looked a bit feminine. Yeah. So that it has got like a feminine fit to it in a way. Yeah. But I like it. Okay.
Yeah, very nice. Thank you
very much for coming on the podcast, Liz.
You're welcome.
So we're now on to my crochet section, and you'll be glad to know that I've been working very hard on my crochet wrap, which is the Ziggy Interupted by Sandra Paul. Now, I think last time I showed you I'd done about that much, I think, but I've done quite well, so I've increased the size of it somewhat, and I've got that far, and I've also got this last bit of squares to go on the end as well. So I've got 5 stripes to finish off, so the distance of about that much to do between these two sections, and then I've just got to do some finishing around the edge. But how cool is that? Nearly finished. Not quite in time for the East Anglian Yarn Festival, I'm afraid, but we are nearly there. We're on the home straight. So I'm hoping next time I podcast I can show you the finished item. So there we go. This is my Ziggy Interrupted by Sandra Paul. I've been showing this every week for the last few weeks now, because I've been slowly chipping away at it. But I'll go through some of the details again. I'm using 4 yarns that I picked up from East Anglian Yarn Festival. This one is a Love Letter by the Camel's Yarn. This one is Snail's Pace by the Woolen Witch. And these two here are both called Poison and they're by Ducky Darlings, and they're just on 2 different yarn bases but all fingering weight. So Sandra's pattern calls for 5 skeins of yarn, but she does say that you can do 4, but obviously all the layouts for the squares are done for 5 different colourways, so I had to sort of rework that out a little bit, but it wasn't too difficult. And I've just done the striping in a fade rather than the instructions that she tells you to do. Really detailed instructions of how to make it, and definitely a pattern that I'd recommend. I am a very slow crocheter, so this has taken me a long while to make to this point, but I've really enjoyed it, and actually now I feel as though I've got quicker working on this project. So I'm using a 3mm hook, and this is my favourite crochet hook that I like to use, and these are the Clover Amore hooks. I do sell these on my website because they are my favourite, but I like these because they've got this very comfortable grip, and I did a little bit of a test on a few different crochet hooks with the rubber grip, and this one was my favourite because I found that it reduced the amount of achy hands I was getting from doing a lot of crochet. I think I was working on my Nature's Walk blanket when I did the sort of comparison, and I was doing a lot of crochet because it was quite a big blanket. And I still find that this is my favourite. I think quite a few of the other rubber handled crochet hooks are also comfortable, but I found the shape of this one was particularly nice for the way I grip my crochet hook, so I definitely recommend those. So I've got a dwindling amount of yarn left over. I'm pretty sure that I have plenty of yarn to finish this project off, but I think I'll have a little bit left over as well to hopefully put it in a scrappy blanket or something. I must get back to my scrappy blankets. I haven't done much work on any of the blankets I've got on the go for a while. Maybe I should show you next time all the blankets I've got on the go, which is probably too many. So there we go, that is my Ziggy Interupted wrap. Love it. And I'm so glad I did these quite muted colours, these sort of purples and beiges. I think they'll go with a lot of my clothes without going too bright. You could of course use lots of scrap yarn for this project, but I just love the way these yarns work together. So my next section is sewing, and I've been sewing up some things for Jensen. So last week I made a top that was from the Hebden t-shirt by Sew Over It, and I've made another one. So I've used the lovely fabric that the lovely Sally from You and Me Mabel had gifted just to make something for Jensen, and I've made another Hebden t-shirt, but this time a long sleeve one with a contrast neckband. So this fabric is absolutely lovely. So this is a jersey fabric from You and Me Mabel. And it's a really nice, lovely, soft cotton, but I had some other sort of minty blue fabric that I thought would go with it really nicely. So I've paired that with it. But this fabric is a loop back jersey, which is not as stretchy, and I've tried to get this over Jensen's head and it is too tight. So I've got 2 options. What I could do is cut a sort of opening at the seam line or the back and put a button closure, or I can cut the neckband larger, cut the neckband off and join in another piece around the neck to make the neckband just wider. I might cut the neckband out slightly different because the pattern piece had the grain line this way, and I've noticed actually that this particular fabric is actually stretchier along the grain line rather than opposite. So I might cut the piece the other way and cut the neckline bigger, and then that should fit over his head hopefully. So I won't be able to show you this on Jensen this week, but hopefully next week I'll get the neckband reapplied so that you can actually see it on him. I do really like the contrast, you see. I could of course just use this lovely fabric that I've got for the main body and just do the neckband in that, which is plenty stretchy enough, but I think it's nice with the contrast, especially with the thing that I've made to go with it. So previously I've made the tangerine trousers, which are these. So this particular pair is 9 to 12 months. Showing it the wrong way, and it's the version with the feet, and I've decided I'm not a big fan of the version with the feet because it's a little bit slippy and they grow out with them quite quickly. I tried to put some of the sock stop on the bottom, but because I found that we were washing these quite a lot, the sock stop doesn't stick on the bottom of these soles very well, so it does come off a little bit, and I was worried about him eating it, so I stopped putting them in these after I put the sock stop on the bottom, and I tried to pull off as much as I could that was actually starting to come off already. So my conclusion was that actually the size of these trousers, 9 to 12 months, still fits Jensen because they're so massive, these trousers. Their leg width is so wide and baggy that actually 9 to 12 months still fits him now fine. And it's just the length of the leg that obviously is growing slightly. So I cut out the material in the French terry for the main body, and then I did a contrast to match the t-shirt because I thought that'd look really nice. And I did the 9 to 12 month size for the body and the leg, but then I've added an extra cuff piece. So there's a version of the tangerine trousers that's just a straight leg, so I used that piece, and then I cut a 5-inch strip that was the same width as the bottom of the trousers for each of the cuffs, and added that on, so that when he grows I can just pull this down and it will last a little bit longer. I could of course done that little cuff a little bit longer still, but I think it seems to work well so far, and I've tried these on him and I'm really pleased with the way they fit. At the moment the length of the body is really long, and I can just turn this over so it isn't too long on his body, but of course it makes sure that they stay on being really high up on his waist. But I love the way these fit him. I'm really pleased with these. I'm just a little bit annoyed that the neckband isn't quite fitting for this one. So this fabric here is from a shop in Shrewsbury, Watson and Thornton, and I'm afraid I've got some confessions that I'm going to tell you about in a little while, which includes this fabric here, which I forgot to include in a previous podcast, but I'll talk about that later. But as I said, this lovely patterned fabric is a Dashwood jersey, cotton jersey from You and Me Mabel, and lovely Sally had given us a discount code. If you want to buy something from Sally's website, You and Me Mabel, we have a discount code which is CraftHouse10, and that'll get you 10% off until the end of May. So I thought I'd reiterate that if you hadn't seen it on a previous podcast. Sally sells a few cotton jerseys, but she mainly sells really lots of lovely quilters cotton and things like that, really beautiful fabrics, so and lots of other bits and bobs as well. So that is all made up. I've pretty much used most of this piece that I had left for this t-shirt, and the pieces that I used for the waistband for this, because this is doubled over, and the cuffs as well. But I do have a strip that it's about this big, so I'm saving it because I think I might be able to use it on something else. But it did pretty much take half a metre for these two items. So hopefully I'll be able to get Jensen to show you the trousers at the end of the video, and then maybe get the other top finished by the next week's video so he can show you what it looks like on. So the patterns that I'd used for these were the Hebden t-shirt. This goes up to a 6-year-old, so that has got plenty of potential to make lots of t-shirts when Jensen is right up to 6 years old. And the tangerine trousers, these actually only go up to 2 years, but because I'm making the 9 to 12 months for Jensen, because they are quite a baggy fit and they then come up a bit of a slimmer fit, I think it'll last him a bit longer than 2 years. And Jensen also wears reusable nappies as well, so they do seem relatively roomy on the waist as well as the leg as well. I just thought they were a bit too baggy to start with when he first wore the 9 to 12 months version, when he was that age. But there we go. I will leave links to the patterns and the fabrics in the description bar down below. So my next section is Gadget, but also confessions at the same time. Oops. So this is a gadget and a confession, this first one, and I saw that my friend from my local quilt group had been using one of these, and I thought maybe I should get one myself. Also, it's nice to be able to show you guys on the podcast what sort of gadgety things you can get for sewing as well. So I had to get one. This can be used as an ironing board. So this is ironing board first. Then inside you have a cutting mat, and then you have a piece of velvet here which opens out, and then you've got a piece of sandpaper. And the velvet and the sandpaper are ideal for putting small pieces on, so you can keep them safe. But not only is the sandpaper good for sort of gripping your fabric as you're placing your pieces on there, but you can also draw on fabric with a pencil as well, or one of those fabric pens. And it makes a nice neat line rather than being all messy like you would if you were drawing it on a table. So sandpaper is good for that. So I thought this would be ideal, and it's also got all sorts of sewing things on the outside. So I thought that would be absolutely ideal. So I picked this up from my local sewing shop, which is So Simple in Taverham in Norwich, but I do believe that they sell them in Hobbycraft as well, but it is a hemline product. I might even see if I can stock these in my shop as well, because I'm quite impressed. It's relatively sturdy and will be brilliant to go to my local quilt group with when I've got little projects on the go. And when you've got lots of little pieces that you want to keep in an order, being able to pop them between the velvet and the sandpaper would be absolutely brilliant. So that's what I've purchased. They do have another load of things in this range where they have everything sort of black and white with gold on it as well. So that's quite a nice thing that you can get things to match. So that is my first confession as well. And I have a super duper confession to make. Oh dear. When I went to Shrewsbury and I went to You and Ply, I also went to the fabric shop. One of my favourite fabric shops in Shrewsbury is Watson and Thornton in Shrewsbury, and they do tend to have quite a lot of jersey fabrics that are lovely, so I had to pop in. So I picked these fabrics. This one here is the cotton French terry that I made into the trousers and the neckline for the project that I've shown you today. So that is a cotton loop back jersey. This one is just like a normal cotton jersey fabric that's like a stretchier one, but it's gorgeous floral, so I had to have that. Let's show you one at a time. So I had to have this gorgeous floral. The reason why I didn't show you these on the week after I'd been to Shrewsbury is because I'd washed them straight away, ready to go in my fabric stash, ready to use. So I had to have this one because it's got these gorgeous flowers on, and I love a flower. So I had a metre and a half of that, I think, to make a long sleeve t-shirt, because I've got these plans to make some more long sleeve t-shirts, or at least 3/4 length. And then I saw this and I thought Jensen needs some of this, and then I did think maybe I should make myself a dress to match, or at least a t-shirt. So I bought 2 meters of this, but then I thought maybe I could squeeze out a t-shirt for Adam and Jensen to match instead. But it's got all planets on with the names on and little spacemen floating, but it's got some really nice colours on. And that's a really nice, that's actually a loop back jersey, but it's a finer one, that one, with quite a lot of stretching and beautiful quality. So I had to have a couple of meters of that. And then I saw this bright blue. So I had to have some of this because I thought that would be really nice to make myself a cardigan with. And I've got a few Blackwood cardigans that I've made that I've worn quite a lot. So I thought, well, I would make one out of this, and then it will be a nice bright blue one. And this actually has got polyester in it. It's like a Ponte Roma jersey fabric. So I thought actually with it having the polyester content, it might not peel so much. We shall see. But I just loved the colour. Normally when it's got polyester in, I do tend to avoid fabrics, but I thought if it's a cardigan that I'm going to wear over another garment, it doesn't matter so much, and it does feel really lovely and soft. So that's going to be turned into something relatively soon, I hope. So that is my naughty confessions. Oh dear. I feel less guilty now that I've confessed to you guys about it. And of course, jersey does not count in your fabric stash, does it? So my next section is a shop update, and I've got a couple of things that are going to go in the shop this week. So these things are all going to go in the shop tomorrow. That is Friday the 17th of March at 7 PM GMT. So I've had these F&B progress keepers in my shop for a little while, but I have managed to find these double-sided charms that have got F and B on both sides. So I like that they're double-sided. They're also enamel, so you get these really pretty colours as well. So I've got these 7 different coloured enamel front and back progress keepers, so you can put them into your work to mark the front and back of your work, which I think is especially important, especially if you're me and you tend to do a lot of crochet and knitting at night time, and sometimes I find it difficult to see which is the front and which is the back. So on these squares of my crochet, for instance, there's definitely a front and a back. When you're doing the zigzag bit, you're going backwards and forwards, so it doesn't matter as much, but I like to mark which is front and the back, so that is helpful to mark F and B on a project, so that you've got a definite idea which is the front and back. So when you pick up a project and it's perhaps not the best of light, you can't quite see which is the front and which is the back, you've now then marked them with these little progress keepers. So the original ones I'd got in the shop were silver, but then I've got some white, green, baby blue, dark pink, light pink, beige and black, so you've got a good choice there of different ones. So they're little progress keepers that you can sort of hook into your knitting or your crochet to mark which is the front or the back. So the other charms that are going to go in the shop this week are these little cute little pom-poms. So they are very, very light, these are, so they will not drag on your work, but they're very cute, fluffy, and they're going to come in sets of 3 on these little lobster clasps. So those will be in the shop as well, and they're 2 different pinks and a white. I thought went really well together, so those will be in the shop. Again, this is tomorrow, the 17th of March at 7 PM GMT. One thing that I've restocked is some of these notions boxes. I've only got the pink and the green back in stock, but I'm hoping to get another set of the blue and the beige in the next few days, so I'm just going to pop those in as soon as they arrive. So those, if you haven't seen them on a previous podcast, are little boxes to keep your little notions in, and they've got little compartments that you can store needles, and little snips fit in this little gap as well. And I put my little progress keepers or stitch markers all separated into like little order, so I like the fact that you can organise things. So those come in the pink, green, blue and beige, but the blue and beige, they're on the way, so they should be restocked in the next couple of days. I'll quickly show you the one that I've been using in one of my project bags. I've got a little pair of snips in there and some grips for changing my needle tips, and some different progress keepers in the little holes. And they're quite nice because you can have it sort of open on the side of the sofa when you need some little bits and bobs. And actually that would be ideal if you're sort of car knitting or on a train as well, so that you've got everything sort of organised so you can grab it nice and easy. So the April yarn clubs won't be on sale until the 24th of March, so that's next week. But if you've already purchased the March yarn clubs, they will be posted tomorrow. So they should be winging their way to you by either Saturday or Monday if you're in the UK. So I think that's mostly all done today, but at last of all we've got Jensen's little appearance, so over to you, Jensen. So Jensen's got his tangerine trousers on. How cute are you? You can see how high they go up because his top's riding up. Yeah, you can see the overlock stitch because I got them turned up. I shouldn't have turned them up quite that much, but there you go. They go right long if you want them to, so he's got a bit of growing room in there and plenty of room for his big reusable nappies, aren't they? Yeah. Oh, right. Do your socks not go very well? Sorry. Are you coming to get me? Are you coming to get me? There we get a nice picture of his bum in his nappy. Thank you very much, Jensen. So thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you'd like to see more, and I shall see you in the next episode. Bye!